I want to meet them.
Yeah, they're mixed.
Yes. Okay.
I can't stop.
All right. Okay. Good morning, house. If you are here, let me see your name. Just type in your name here. Aisha. Good. Abdul Kudus, Nefishi Oloyede, Fati Akinola, Rehan Yusuf. Wow. Yes. Good afternoon once again. I'm sure you've seen the notice from the information from the school. Please, I beg you, let's make this class interesting and lively, but should be mindful of what to type in here. And there shouldn't be any disturbance from anybody. Wow, Iman L, good afternoon. How are you? I miss you guys. Hope you're enjoying your stay at home, and at the same time, hope you are reading, preparing for exams once we resume back to school. Good morning. Who said no? Radia, what happened? What's the meaning of no? Oganla, good afternoon. Oh, thanks so much. Sally Ibrahim. Kausa Bello, good afternoon. Praise Olawale, good afternoon. Aisha Abdullahi, what's the problem? You said no. No to what? Rukewe, good afternoon. Jubri Awesu, good afternoon. Nice to see you here. Demola, good afternoon. Sheriff Oba, good afternoon. Good afternoon. You all. I am happy to see you. Now let's go to the business of the day. Abdullah Shogami, good afternoon. Jamal Oderinu, good afternoon. Jamil Oderinu, rather, good afternoon. Halima, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Now, before we go into the topic before us today, and I have some people type in the last topic we treated. Just type in here, let me see. To know if you really remember what we learned last. Just type in the last topic, please. Maybe 2 boys and 2 girls. The topic we treated 2 weeks ago. No, by not enjoying. Okay, not enjoying the stay at home. Don't worry, very soon you come back to school. Replanting operations, Rukewe, thank you very much. Sheriff, cultural practices, thank you. Jami Oderino, thank you. One girl more. Okay, Toluwani, cultural practices, replanting operation. Arasi, Aisha Abdullah, replanting operation. I'm proud of you. I am proud of you all. I'm proud of you all. That is good. Our last topic. That's good to know that you remember our last topic. Pre-planting operations. Under the main topic is cultural practices, and which is divided into 3 parts.
Demola, I'm sorry, I'm going to block you for always. You don't have to share anything which is irrelevant with this class.
Somebody like this person asked for the ID.
They are going to do meeting after this our classes. It's not
Okay.
allowed with our class.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, sir. No, sorry. Okay. Well, cultural practices, which is divided into 3 stages or 3 activities. The first one is pre-planting activities or pre-planting operations. The second part, which will be taken today as the third part, planting and post-planting operations. But before we start, let me just refresh your memories. The last class on the pre-planting operations, I told you that pre-planting operations are the operations that are being carried out before planting is done. We have so many examples of them. Before you go into planting or before you plant your crops as a crop farmer, the first thing is you get a good land. You get the land you want to plant on. Then you evaluate the land. Is the land good for planting? Once you are satisfied, you certify that the land is good for planting, you now test the soil on the land. What type of crops would be good to be planted on such crops? Once you've done that, you go into tillage operation. And tillage can be defined as the mechanical manipulation of the soil, that is, the digging, the breaking and turning of the soil, so as to make sowing of seeds easier for you as a farmer. Under tillage, we have 2 classes of tillage. The first one is called the primary tillage, and the second one is called the secondary tillage. What is primary tillage? Primary tillage is the breaking of the soil. The breaking of the soil. You're losing the soil so that it will be easier to sow seed or to plant other parts of your crops. That is called primary tillage, the breaking of the soil. And this primary tillage can also be called plowing. Tools that are used for plowing are called plowing implements. One major example is a plow for farm, as an example of farm machine, plow. Then the crude tool that can be used to plow can make use of your shovel to dig the soil. That's the first type of tillage. Then the second example is called the secondary tillage operation or secondary tillage. Secondary tillage can be defined as the breaking and turning of the soil. The first one, you dig the soil surface. When you dig, you find out that this soil will form clods. They pack together like balls of earth. You can't still plant on them like that. You have to proceed to the next stage, which is the secondary tillage operation, which involves breaking of the soil and turning. When you break the soil, you turn the soil so as to mix the soil nutrients together. And if there's water in a particular part of the soil and there's no water in the other, you just make sure that the water circulates around. By turning, you make sure that the soil nutrients also are mixed together so that no part will be left without plant nutrients. Secondary tillage is called harrowing. And the implements that are used for secondary tillage are the harrow and the ridgers. The harrows and the ridgers. Now, after that, you can plant. So this brings us to today's topic, which is the last stage, the second and the third stage of the cultural practices: planting and post-planting activities. At the end of this class, I have objectives I want you to achieve. Take note of these points so that you can ask yourself these questions. Definition of planting, You should be able to define planting at the end of this lesson. 2, you should be able to list the 2 types of germination that we have. Victor Obaseki, you are welcome. Good afternoon. 3, you should also be able to list 2 methods of planting. How do we plant? What are the methods involved in planting? Then the 4th one is examples of post-planting operations. Planting. It can be defined as the deliberate placing of seed or any part of plant into the soil. I said seed or any part of plant into the soil. About 3 or 4 weeks ago, we talked about crop propagation. In that lesson, I told you that we have 2 types of crop propagation. The first one is sexual propagation, and the second one is asexual propagation. Sexual propagation involves planting of seeds, using seeds to plant new crops. Then the second one is asexual, which is also called vegetative propagation, which involves using of older parts of your plant, which can be the leaves, the roots, the stems, to grow new crops. So when you place the seeds or older parts of plant into the soil to produce new crops and to ensure germination and growth, that process is what we refer to as planting. In short, all right. Amina Abdullahi, please be snappy, be fast with it. Are you good to go now? Okay. So planting, like I said, is the deliberate placing of seed or other parts of the plant into the soil so as to ensure germination and growth. Germination. When the seeds you plant begin to sprout. How do you know it sprouts? When you see tiny leaves coming out from that particular spot you planted seed into. That is what we refer to as germination. And we have 2 types of germination based on the 2 classification of crops that we have, based on their cotyledon. The first type of germination is called the epigee germination. It means that when you sow your seeds into the soil, after between 3 or 5 days, you see that the seeds you planted will shoot out above the soil surface by the time it germinates or degerminates. You bury the seed, but after 5 days, you see the seed buried in the soil, shooting above the soil surface. That is called epigee germination. And this type of germination is common in dicotyledons, plants that have 2 seed leaves. So the hypocotyl comes above the soil surface once the seeds germinate. That is called epigee germination. Then the second one is called hypogee germination. This is commonly found in monocotyledons. And monocotyledons are the crops that have just 1 seed leaf or 1 cotyledon. The hypocotyl remain in the soil even after the seeds germinate. You bury the seed remain buried in the soil. Only the tiny leaves or the seedlings will shoot out to prove to you that the seeds you planted have germinated. How do farmers plant? We have 2 methods of planting, depending on the size of the farmland. If it is a small farmland, the farmer can do what is called manual planting, which involves the use of human labor and few hand tools, such as the shovel, the hoe, and the cutlass to dig the soil to place the seed. Methods of planting to be used will depend on the size of your farmland. If you have a small farmland, you can use the manual planting method, which involves the use of human labor and few hand tools. Then, if your farmland is very large, you are into commercial farming, you make use of mechanical planting, because making use of manual planting will exhaust you. And it will take a longer period of time before you can cultivate or before you can cover the whole of your farmland. So for commercial farming, you make use of mechanical planting. I saw Oganla, if you want to write, Please do. You are free to write. Also, yes. Iman, Ogala, you can write. Fatima Omar Akali, good afternoon. Welcome on board. So mechanical planting is done on commercial basis. That is, if you are going into commercial farming, so you make use of farm machines like tractor and planter to sow your seeds. I'll still give you time to write the note, but let me just explain first. That is that about planting operations. We have two types of planting, manual planting and mechanical planting. For manual planting, it involves the use of human labor and few hand tools, such as the cutlass, the hoe, the shovel to dig the soil, to drop your seed and to cover the soil back. Then mechanical planting involves the use of farm machines such as the tractors and the planters. And you make use of mechanical farming planting rather if you have a large piece of land that will take a longer period of time for human labor to work on. Then when you plant sow seed, I said we have two types of germination, which are the epigee germination and the hypogee germination. Epigee germination is found in dicotyledons, and dicotyledons are plants with two seedlings, while hypogee germination is found in monocotyledons, which are crops with just one seed leaf. Now, post-planting operations. When we talk about post means after. So post-planting means operations or activities that are carried out after planting is done. Example, the number one example here is manure and fertilizer application. Manure and fertilizers are like food for the soil or food in the soil to be used by seed planted or to be used by plants growing in the soil. Manure, fertilizers. As a farmer, if you cannot buy fertilizers, we have manure, and we have three types of manure. We have the organic manure, we have the farmyard manure, and we have the compost manure. These are things that you can easily, okay, Abdullah Shogamu, from where to where? Okay, manure are things you can produce by yourself. We have the materials to be used around us. For organic manure, you can get organic manure from leaves of grasses and then legumes. Leaves from grasses or legumes, you plow them or you spread them on the surface of your soil, you allow them to become rotting, then you mix them with your soil. Examples of leguminous crops are beans, soya beans, groundnuts. You allow the leaves to become rotten, to get rotten on the soil, you mix them together. They will increase your soil fertility. Therefore, farmyard manure, you get poo-poo or feces of farm animals, especially poultry droppings, the feces of domestic fowl. You get them, you spread them on your soil, you leave them for some time. You don't plant immediately you spread the poultry dropping on your soil. You allow them to stay for maybe 1 week so that they become dry. Then you now plow your soil. Excuse me. Mr. Adi.
Yes, Albert. No problem.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So you can produce your manure by yourself if fertilizers are expensive. Good friend. There are two Abdullah Ishogba privately. So you add manure and fertilizer to the soil to improve soil fertility, and this is what will make your crops grow very well. After that, the second post-planting operation is watering, application of water to the soil when you don't have sufficient rainfall. Some people refer to it as irrigation. Yes, you apply water to your crops when there is no sufficient rainfall. You can use watering can, and you can use some of this irrigation system, maybe sprinkler irrigation, drip irrigation, flood irrigation, to provide water or to supply water to your crops. Fatima Omar, I will remove you. I will remove you. You will be removed. I don't know what exactly is wrong with you JSS2 boys. We've been using this system for other classes. We don't have problem. Each time it is for each time it's your turn to come online, you write rubbish, you distract other people's attention. If you are not careful, you will be removed. So I'm giving you the last warning now. Eunice, Maya, Eunice. So the third point is thinning. Thinning can be defined as the removal of weak or excess seedlings from each plant. If you want to plant, for example, maize, in each hole, you have to draw 3 to 4 seeds. The reason why you have to increase the number is you can't tell which of these seeds will germinate. So if you have 4 seeds of maize in a hole and the 4 of the seeds germinate, fine. You cannot leave them because the farm will become rowdy. So you now observe very well and look for the weak ones or the poorly grown ones you removed. You reduce to 2 seedlings in each hole. That's the meaning of thinning. If you have all the 4 seeds planted growing very well, you still have to remove 2 so that the farm will not be overcrowded. So removal of weak or excess seedlings from each plant stand is called thinning. So it is also one of the post-planting activities we carry out on the farm. Number 4 is supplying. From the word supply, supplying. When you plant seeds, it is possible some of the holes will have ungerminated seeds there. You go back there and you replant. So the process of replanting new seeds in holes of ungerminated seeds is called supplying. After that, you can carry out what is called weeding. Weeds are unwanted plants. They are crops that grow where they are not wanted. They compete with our crop for so many things. They compete with our crops for soil nutrients. They compete with our crops for space, for water, for soil air. So you have to remove them from the farm. If not, your crops will not grow very well, or they will reduce the quality and quantity of your crops. And also you have to spend more, thereby they increase your cost of production. So you have to eradicate weeds from your farm. Rukewe for 10 seconds. All right. So I'm counting, giving you 10 seconds. Once it's time, I'll remove it. So you don't allow weeds to stay on your farm. If not, they will destroy what you've planted, and no farmer will be happy seeing weeds taking over his farm without uprooting them. Rukewe, are you good to go now? All right. So supplying, replanting of new seeds in hosts of ungerminated seeds. Then weeding. I said weeds are plants that grow where they're not wanted. They compete with our crops for soil nutrients, for space, for sunlight, for water. Therefore, you have to remove them. After weeding, we have mulching. M-U-L-C-H-I-N-G. Mulching is the act of covering the soil surface with dry plant materials. When you want to cover your soil surface, you don't cover your germinated crops. You don't cover the seedling, no. You only cover the soil surface around your seeds with dry plant material so that the rate of evaporation would be reduced. What is evaporation? Evaporation is the loss of soil water to the atmosphere in the presence of sunlight. And once there's no water in your soil or there's no adequate soil water, the growth of your plant will be affected. The plant will become stunted, they won't grow very well. So you have to do everything possible to make sure that soil water is not reduced. And this you can do by covering your soil surface with dried plant materials. Mind you, I didn't say any plant materials, you make use of the dried one, because if you use fresh plant material, from there they can sprout and begin to germinate. But when you make use of dry plant material, they cover the soil surface, and by the time they even become decomposed, they also increase soil nutrients. The last point is pruning. Pruning is the removal of branches of trees, and this is mainly done when you have tree crops on your farm. Examples are oranges, mango, and some other crops. Then when you have cocoa farm, timber, oil palm plantation, you have to prune the branches. You prune the branches. It is also one of the post-planting activities carried out on the farm. So these are some of the post-planting activities on the farm. Once you've done this, you can at least relax as a farmer for a few months before you go back to your farm and before you prepare for harvesting. Screenshot. Salim, next slide to screenshot. Slide 7. On slide 7. Okay. Ibrahim, this is slide 7. Let me know when you are done, please. All right. Okay. After the post-planting activities, we have what we call harvesting. No farmer will plant and just allow the crops to rot on the farm. They farm for certain purposes or for certain reasons, which one is to harvest their crop, to sell, and to get income. Harvesting can be defined as the separation of useful parts of plants from useful parts of plants or crops from matured plants. It is the separation of useful parts, that is the part of the plant that you need. You have to separate them from the whole plant. That process is referred to as harvesting. When you plant, it is not all what you find on your farm that is useful. It is not all what you find on your farm that you need. You have to separate those ones that are useful to you, and you leave the remaining on the farm. So that process of separating useful parts of plants from your crops, from the mature plant rather, is called separation. And this also can be done manually or with the use of farm machines, depending on the size of farmland that you have. The farm machines that are used to harvest seed on the farm are called harvesters. And you have one particular farm machine that will harvest, that will remove the chaff, that will also bag your seed for you. This one is called combined harvester. After harvesting, that is not all. Some of these crops, when you harvest them, they are not in the state that can be eaten. You need to process them. So the type of crop processing that is done at the farm level to ensure that you have clean seeds or fruit is called farm level processing. The crop processing that is done at the farm or on the farm to ensure that you have clean seeds or fruit is called farm level processing. And you carry out farm level processing after you have harvested, you might have harvested your crops or your seed. After the farm level processing, what next do farmers do? They store. You store your farm produce for future use as food or for sale. So the process of keeping agricultural produce for future use, either as food or for sale, is called storage. Before I project the homework, let me run through the slides again. The topic is planting and post-planting operations. And I said planting operation or planting itself is the act of placing seeds or other parts of plant into the soil so as to ensure germination and growth. We have two types of germination: epigee germination and hypogee germination. Epigee germination occurs in dicotyledons. When you sow your seed, by the time they germinate, you realize that the seeds you buried in the soil will shoot out above the soil surface. This is what we refer to epigee germination, and it happens in dicotyledons. And dicotyledons are the crops that have two seed leaves or two cotyledons. Then the second type of germination is hypogee germination, which is found in monocotyledons. Once you plant your seed, by the time the seeds germinate, they remain buried in the soil. You don't see them above the soil surface. The only thing you see is the newly grown or newly germinated seedlings coming out as a proof that the seed you planted have germinated. And hypogee germination is found in monocotyledons, which are crops with just one seed leaf. There are two methods of planting: manual planting and mechanical planting. Manual planting involves the use of human labor and few hand tools. And I told you that manual labor can only be used on a small farmland. Mechanical planting involves the use of farm machines like your planter and tractor. For you to decide the method of planting you want to use, your decision on the type of method of planting to use will depend on the size of your farm land. After this, once you've done your planting, you go into the post-planting operations, which are activities that are carried out after planting is done. The first one is manure and fertilizer application. You add manure and fertilizer to your soil so as to improve your soil fertility, so that there will be enough nutrients in the soil for your crops to grow, to make use of during their growing period. After this, we have watering, application of water or irrigation. You need to apply water to your soil when there is no sufficient rainfall. But if there's sufficient rainfall, there's no problem. And there are some crops that are being planted all through the year, which means you have to provide irrigation if you want to plant all through the year. Once it is dry season, you supply water to your soil. After this, we have thinning. Thinning is the removal of poorly grown or excess seedlings from each plant stand. I explained that earlier. We have supplying. Supplying is the removal Sorry, supplying is the replanting of new seed in holes of ungerminated seed. I gave you a case study of maize plant that you have to sow 4 seeds. And if after germination, a particular hole, there's nothing growing out of it, that means you have to go back and replant new seeds in the hole. The fifth post-planting operation is weeding. Weeds are plants that grow where they are not wanted. In short form, you say they are unwanted plants. They compete with crops for so many things, for water, for space, for sunlight, for soil nutrients. If you don't remove them, they will deprive your crops of all the necessary conditions they need to grow and to germinate and to grow very well. So you have to uproot the weeds. You remove them from your farm. Then after that, you have mulching. Mulching is the process of covering your soil surface with dry plant materials in order to prevent evaporation. You don't cover your germinated plants, seedlings. It is the part or the soil around your seedlings that you cover with dry grasses so that the soil water there will not be lost to the atmosphere in form of evaporation. And evaporation can be defined as loss of soil water to the atmosphere. After this, we carry out what is called pruning. For food crops, we don't really need pruning because they are not tree crops. You carry out pruning when you have cash crops, when you're a cash crop farmer, or when you have plantations such as a rubber plantation, oil palm plantation, and you have cocoa farm. You carry out pruning there. But for food crops, there's nothing like pruning. Once you do this as a farmer, you can rest for few weeks before you go back to check on your farm. And after that, you harvest your crops. And harvesting can be defined as the separation of useful parts of your plant from matured plants. Separation of useful parts of plants from matured. Not all the plants on the farm are useful. You separate the ones that are useful and you leave the unuseful parts. This can be done manually or mechanically. It also still depends on the size of your farmland. If you are a peasant farmer or you are into subsistence farming, that means your farmland is very small, so you can harvest manually. But if you are into commercial farming, you need farm machines to harvest. And the farm machines used for harvesting are called harvesters. After that, we carry out what we call farm level processing, because there are some crops that are not in a state that can be eaten, so they need to be processed. For example, cassava, you have to peel, you wash, you grate, or you grind, or you grate, and before you process into garri or other things. Then even rice, when you harvest rice grains, you have to remove the grains from the chaff. That also involves processing. When you harvest your soya beans or you harvest your normal beans, cowpea, you have to remove the grains from the pods. That process is what we call farm level processing. After this, you store your farm produce for future use or for sale. And this process is called storage. Storage is the process of keeping farm produce for future use as food or for sale. So before we round off this afternoon, I have homework. The first one is you define the term animal feeds. 2, you list 3 types of animal feeds that we have. Animal feeds, what does that term mean? And list 3 types of animal feeds. Ma, why do you have to from? Yeah, so we've come to the end of the lesson this afternoon. Never endeavor. Never commit. Good afternoon. Good afternoon.